Well, hey there. Today we're in the studio again with Tony, the athletic chaplain at the University of Oregon. And today we're talking about leadership for athletes and coaches. We're talking about a couple of marks of a David-like leader. So first of all, who's David? What are we talking about here?
Well, we'll get to that here in a minute. We're going to contrast King David and King Saul.
Okay.
But I want to start off by just saying something to athletes and coaches in general.
Yeah.
And in this idea of leadership, in that, one, the fact that you're an athlete or you're a coach means that you are a leader. 8 out of 10 most recognizable faces in the world are athletes. And that in working with college athletes, I understand that businesses, corporations, whatever it may be, actively recruit college athletes because of the characteristics they possess and the leadership qualities that they possess. So that by nature, they are leaders. And I love the Billy Graham quote where he says, coaches impact more young people in a year than most people impact in their lifetime.
That's good.
They are leaders.
Now, I think coaches have a good sense that they are.
Yeah.
But I think, have you noticed a lot of athletes aren't even aware?
Yeah.
They're just like, I'm just an athlete.
Yep.
Don't bother
Or
me.
they're afraid of the title.
Yeah.
They avoid it. But here's the other thing about it, too, is that by nature, being a follower of Christ, you're a leader as well. That you are a revolutionary. You are called to follow a revolutionary and be a revolutionary.
Yeah.
That you are called to care for people's souls and to change the world through caring through people's souls, and to care for people's lives and to change the world through social justice and taking care of the oppressed and the widow and the homeless and whatever it may be. That in that call, we are called to be revolutionaries and life changers and world changers, which is leadership. That's what leadership is about.
So we have two examples of leaders in the Old Testament. We've got Saul, King Saul.
The first king of Israel.
The first king, and then his replacement, King David.
King David.
What was the difference between them?
Well, King Saul looked the part. He was tall, he was handsome. He looked like somebody that anyone would want to follow.
Right.
And then we have David, who, again, didn't look the part, but became the idealized king. That the scripture calls him the man after God's own heart. And although he wasn't perfect and he had some huge mistakes, he was the idealized leader that we see in Scripture. And I think there's a couple things that sets him apart that we contrast and that we see in that David-like leader that we can apply to our lives as coaches and athletes. And the first thing is this, that we see very clearly in the life of David that he was motivated by the opinion of God, while Saul was motivated by the opinion of people. He was motivated by their criticism. And the fact is, as a leader, we go first. We're called to go first. We step out there first. And as a coach or an athlete in leadership, you will always be open to criticism. You're not going to make everybody happy, and there's always going to be naysayers. And that we've got to hear that deep inner voice of God and be led and motivated and moved by that inner voice of God. And although that we don't listen to the voice of our people, that we know what God is calling us to, and that our vision for that, and that we can't make everybody happy. So we got to pioneer forward. We got to go forward and be strengthened by the voice of God.
Yeah, people pleasers make some of the worst leaders. At first blush, they seem like great leaders.
Yeah.
The people love it, the ones that they're pleasing, but you can't. That's not really great leadership.
Yeah.
Is just pleasing.
We got to
people.
be led by truth, what is right and what is best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And David had that. There are
That's
lots
very
of
true.
stories and lots of examples in his life.
And I think a great analogy for it, maybe we've heard this before, but is the analogy of a thermometer and a thermostat. And that a thermometer just shows the temperature, shows what the people are saying, and raises and falls based upon that. Well, a thermostat changes it. It changes the culture. And that's what we're trying to do as coaches and athletes. We're trying to change the culture that we're in and to be that catalyst so that we set the temperature and the others follow.
But then the second thing is related to this, because even though David wasn't a people pleaser, he still put other people ahead of himself, which seems maybe a little bit like a paradox, but that's what he did in his leadership style.
Maybe a little bit, but I think we see it very clearly in David. We see it very clearly in Jesus, in that they sacrificed for their people, for the good of their people, not just the criticisms of their people, but for the good of their people, and they put their people before them, and that even great leaders find a way to put the goal, the team goals or whatever it may be, and the people. They don't sacrifice people for the sake of the goals. While in Saul, we see he was just about himself. He was trying to maintain his powers, trying to maintain his position, and that the criticism made him feel insecure, so he held on to power more deeply and tried to maintain that position. And that great leaders, like Jesus says when in the parable of the Good Shepherd, when he says, the Good Shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. And that's what Jesus did for us. He sacrificed his life for us. And that's the ultimate leadership. That's what we see of this, putting our people ahead of ourselves.
So athletes and coaches, if you're watching this with a mentor or with a huddle, I encourage you to check out the questions below and unpack this in your own life. How can I be more of a David-like leader on my team and my situation and leverage the platform that I have as an athlete or as a coach? We'll see you in the next video.